What's up, guys? D-Rock1992 here. For this next video and for my next Marvel Cinematic Universe film review, I am going to be reviewing the sequel to Thor, which is Thor The Dark World, that came out in 2013, the same year as Iron Man 3 did. So, in Thor The Dark World, it's the 8th installment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, in this one, you have Loki who, from the events of the Avengers defeat Loki in the Avengers film, and Loki basically is a prisoner on Asgard now. Thor has to try to... he's conflicted. He's a conflicted individual at the beginning of this film because, his father wants him to rule. His father, who is Odin, wants him to rule the kingdom. And I don't think he's completely sure he wants to do it. He doesn't really want to, I think he misses the character Jane Porter from the last Thor movie, played by Natalie Portman. So you kind of see that. The main villain in this film is the Dark Elf Malekith. And what basically is the plot in this film is that, the Malekith, before Thor's time, was a major villain against Asgard, was defeated, and now he wants to take his revenge in the present day. He wants to take his revenge on the present day. And he uses this weapon called the Ether that tries to... And he uses this weapon to try to take over the universe. Take over the 9 realms of the universe. The 9 realms, very rarely, they all connect. Basically, these 9 realms, they all connect, and they create portals to each other, I believe, something like that. The plot, kind of is a little tough to understand, but once you kind of get it, you get it, Once you kind of get it, you follow the story pretty well. So Jane Porter gets affected by the Ether and its powers. Thor brings her to Asgard to try to cure her of the Ether's powers. And in the process, they have to defeat Malekith and his forces from gaining control of the universe. Essentially, the plan is to plunge the entire universe into darknss, hence the Dark World. So, they have to stop him. They have to stop Malekith from doing this. And that's essentially the plot. Chris Hemsworth returns in his 3rd movie as Thor, after Thor and the Avengers. Natalie Portman returns, as I said, to play Jane Foster. I said Jane Porter before, I meant Jane Foster. Tom Hiddleston returns as Loki. Anthony Hopkins returns as Odin. Stellan Skarsgård returns as Dr. Eric Selvig, who actually has a pretty big role in the Avengers. Loki controls him in the Avengers. Idris Elba returns as Heimdall, the sentry of the bridge, of the Bifrost Bridge, the bridge which connects Asgard to the outside world. Christopher Eccleston plays Malekith, the main villain. Kat Dennings plays Darcy Lewis, the assistant to Natalie Portman's character. And those are pretty much the major characters. Now, I'm not going to give it away, but there is a major death that goes on in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The Cinematic Universe is kind of known for its deaths, but then everybody comes back from death. Well, this one character in Thor The Dark World does not. I don't think is going to come back at all. You know, because it was pretty apparent she died in this film. It is a major character in the film, major female character in the film. I'm not going to give it away, but it is definitely apparent for sure. And it is a pretty important character in that movie. And she was important in the first film as well. So, I think, personally, my opinion of the film, I think it's a step up from the first Thor. I really do. I think it's a funnier film. I think the villain, Christopher Eccleston, if I can remember, the first villain in the first Thor, excuse me, was Loki. Loki was the major villain in the film, but in this one, Thor has to team up with Loki, basically, to defeat Malekith. So Loki is kind of a good guy in this film, for the majority of the film, basically. The villain Malekith is a good villain, a good, serviceable villain in the franchise. You know, he's a good villain. I had no issues with him at all. I'm one that likes the chemistry between Chris Hemsworth and Natalie Portman. They're a good chemistry. They have good chemistry together. Tom Hiddleston was as funny as ever in this film. Tom Hiddleston, you know, low-key serious, but he also has wit about him. You know, he also has definitely a wit to him that's pretty funny. Anthony Hopkins plays Odin. He does a great job once again. Pretty much everybody who returned, Hemsworth, Portman, Hiddleston, Hopkins especially, they performed very well as they did in the first film, basically. But I think this sequel, is a step up from Thor because I think it's funnier. I think in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you need the wit and you need the humor to kind of fit in with the seriousness of the plot and things like that. And I think Thor The Dark World is one that definitely is a little funnier than before. I think so. And having said that, I am going to give it the same review I gave Thor, 5 out of 5 stars. I do think it is a step up from Thor. I'm still giving it the same review as I did the first Thor, but I do think personally it's a little better than Thor, the first Thor. Thor The Dark World, I think, is a step up. And it got I've forgotten to say the critical responses from Rotten Tomatoes, but 65% on Rotten Tomatoes. So, I mean, I think it's a very good film, a good Marvel film for sure, and it is definitely that type of film that is better than the original, as I said before. So, very good film once again, 5 out of 5 stars, and that's it for this video. D-Rock 1992 out.